Welcome everybody here to the Utilities and Roading meeting. First up, have we got any apologies? None received. And got the Mayor 515. 515 too. Right, so we've got a mover for those. Dan and Robbie, second. All in favour? Right. Cool. Conflicts of interest. No conflicts of interest. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor Blackie seconded. Yep. Any matters arising? None of that. Right. Deputation presentations. Haven't got any of them. So, right, we'll go on to reports. So we've got 5.1. Joanne. Welcome. It's page 15.
Thank you very much. So this report is seeking approval for an amendment to the Road and Capital Works program. Originally in the Curb and Channel Renewal section of the program, we had a project for Otaki Street Curb and Channel Renewal. Due to shovel-ready projects being undertaken on Otaki Street, we're proposing to push that project out to the following year and instead carry out the William Street Curb and Channel Renewal, Cass Street to Sewell Street. What we don't want to have, sorry, out of breath from running upstairs, is for us to do the Curb and Channel Renewal in Otaki Street and then have it damaged during the stormwater pipe construction. We are aware William Street is a very high priority for the Kaipoi Tuahiwi Community Board, so we're suggesting that comes forward. I'm happy to take the report as read. Other than that, if there are any questions.
Any questions? Moved by Councillor Blackie. Got a seconder? Second by the Mayor. Second by Robbie. Councillor Blackie?
No, not really. Thank you. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? I mean, otherwise you're going to do it twice, so well done, Joanne.
I think, yeah. Any more speakers? No? Councillor Stewart?
It's not possible to do the Otaki Street Curb and Channel after you've done, immediately after, so you do it all in one? Or is that, it is preferable to do it in Williams Street rather?
So we can certainly look to how the timing can work in with or follow on with the shovel-ready projects, but because this budget has to be spent this financial year, the timing wouldn't quite work. So it would come out of next financial year anyway, so we'll work with the shovel-ready team and see whether we can get that accommodated.
I'll put that in. All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, now we've got 5.2 LED lighting colours, and we've got Joanne again. She'll be in a bit of breath, would have caught up with her by now.
Yeah, I have, thank you. So this report is a bit of a follow-on from a briefing that we did with Utilities and Roading on street lighting a wee while back, when we were looking at and considering colour temperature and having a look at what was being done nationally. There has been, I guess there's two schools of thoughts in terms of streetlight colour. From an NZTA perspective and a road safety perspective, they're recommending 4000K lighting. That's because you get better definition and for a driver, better recognition of issues in the road corridor at night time. But from a community perspective, and certainly an amount of the research that's been undertaken would indicate that 4000K lighting is more stimulating and it potentially has effects on people and insects and birds. So what we're recommending is a approach where we use 4,000 k lighting on our arterial, strategic and collector roads, and 3,000 k lighting on our local roads, which are more our residential roads where road safety is less of a high priority than our strategic, arterial and collectors. One thing we have noted in there is there was a deputation, I understand, from the Oxford Observatory requesting dark skies status. We haven't at this stage allowed any budget for achieving dark sky status in Oxford. It would mean a number of LEDs that were put up there around about 2 years ago would need to be replaced. And the approximate cost of that was around $70,000. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Doody first, and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Joanne. We've just been talking about previously about the dark skies for Oxford. The observatory is really trying to get their money towards having a, I can't remember what size telescope, and so they were actually going to end up with 3, and they were wanting to really promote. So just think probably it might be advisable if we liaise with them, because they won't, if they're going to be doing that, they won't want bright lighting, and they were hoping to do that next winter.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. A couple of questions. So the differentiation between the light intensity, does the 4,000 follow our crime cameras, so that on strategic you'll be able to see as good as you need to see to identify any miscreants?
I believe so, and that was part of the reason why 4,000 k was put into Kaiapoi Town Centre.
Yes.
And that was certainly the advice that we were given around that time, is that to get that definition and the best out of our cameras, we needed the whiter light rather than the yellow, which is harder to differentiate.
Thank you. And the second question concerns the Oxford situation. If those lights that are already there are only 2 years old, why don't we, when we're due for replacing or converting any other area of the district, take those Oxford lights of the higher intensity and put them where we need them, and use that budget to do the amber in Oxford, so that in fact you could achieve the dark sky. Is that going to be possible?
So that a figure estimate of 70,000 had allowed for that.
Oh,
So it would
okay.
be assuming that we would be taking those lights and replacing them with a compliant light, which would also have to be shielded. Just one thing to note is there have been some complaints about lighting in Oxford and the level of lighting since we have replaced with the LEDs. If we were to go to a shielded yellow light, I suspect those complaints would increase, because there will be a perception of a lower level of lighting even still, even though that's not the case.
Presumably the community embraces this dark sky concept. Perhaps there needs to be some communication around exactly what that means, changing the light. Is that a proposal that you should investigate with the community board and others?
Perhaps I'll answer that first. The danger with doing that is the council has not got budget. We've not allocated budget to change it. It's a request that has come through from a group, and that might actually raise the expectations of the community before the council's had a chance to consider whether it wants to would consider allocating funding to allow that transfer from the 400k to the 3,000, in Oxford, and so there would be there would be a danger in doing that because it might raise those expectations in the community.
Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a wee bit of discussion about lighting today already in terms of the district plan, and Gerard and Glenn's down there, are both on the Town Centre Lighting and Decorations Committee, and we have a consultant, Kevin Crowley. In terms of town centre lighting, has there been any consultation, or are we working in with other groups so we don't have the right hand not knowing what the left is doing? That's question number one. I've got another one too.
Okay, it's a really good question. So what we have said is specifically this proposal would exclude the town centres, because I think what we need to do is to address each town centre holistically, and that is going to be a little bit challenging because there are differing needs and ideas for town centres, but getting a lighting designer involved in how best to achieve that, where I think it becomes a little bit challenging is things like pedestrian crossings need to be lit to a certain level, which then may not fit nicely with ambient lighting. So there's a little bit of a challenge there, but I think undertaking that specific design for the town centres and having it excluded from this general approach would be the best way forward.
Thank you. My second question is, are we changing to LED lighting? And if we are, will that provide any cost savings in terms of maintenance?
Yes, when we're replacing lighting, we are replacing with LED. The process will be quite slow. It will be over a number of years. And sorry, the second part of that is cost savings. So yes, cost savings in terms of longevity of life, but what we're getting as an indication from power suppliers is at the moment is that they are just re-spreading their cost across the network. So it's not necessarily giving us the savings in electricity that we had hoped for.
And Councillor Doody.
Sorry, Joanne, it was just another question about the Oxford one. Well, it is a question because mine was a statement before. If I can remember rightly, is it that the extra costs up there is because we need more poles per area, or?
So the cost that's in this report, the $70,000, would be, which isn't put forward as a suggested budget, it's just noting that that would be the estimated cost. There's no allowance for that at the moment, but that would be just a straight swap with a compliant night skies light with a shield for the lights that are there currently. That doesn't address deficiencies in lighting poles or spacings of light poles in Oxford. That would be over and above that.
Just, it's probably worth adding to that. It is a good question. One of the issues with switching from the incandescent bulbs or the high pressure sodium bulbs over to LEDs is you end up with pools of quite intense light and then areas of dark light, whereas the older ones are a bit more diffuse. And if you just change the LEDs, just the light fittings themselves, and that's something other councils have found where they've done that, they do start to get those complaints that we've had in Oxford. So in an ideal world, you'd put more poles in, but then it becomes a lot more expensive to do. So it is that is definitely one of the challenges of transferring over to LEDs.
And one question for myself, are we still getting that government subsidy of 80%? That's gone now, has it?
And that's right, that's gone, and the indications from NZTA is there will be no enhanced VAR in the next 3-year funding period, so we're not anticipating that's still to be available.
Okay. Right, have we got a mover? And that's same as for 5.2.
Thank you. Just very briefly, Mr. Chair.
Second it.
Very briefly, I'm not going to just go into the 3,000 or 4,000. Just observation when I was reading this report was surely the observatory would have done some sort of calculation when deciding whether there was a viable option to be here before going, or in the process of going. It flummoxed me somewhat reading the report that they hadn't seemed to have done their homework.
I support the report, the recommendation and the information in the report. We had quite a good discussion through the district plan meeting earlier around dark skies in particular, and our view was, certainly when looking at that, there does need to be some further consultation with the community of Oxford, in particular the community board, and also the high school and the users of the observatory. So I think that matter can come back at a later stage. But I'm not an expert in the the amber LED and all those other things. I take the advice of our staff on that, and certainly am in support of it. Thank you.
Got any other speakers? Councillor Doody?
The observatory was actually built by the school for that, and they probably wouldn't have back then thought about all the light situation, I would say, because it's been up for quite a number of years, but they're wanting to push it forward. And so this is where it's coming in, because in time, hopefully in time, it may bring a bit of revenue into the school.
Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I don't have a vote on this committee, but I think the way you're going is the right approach to try it. If it doesn't work, you can always go back, which is the beauty of it. But the main complaints I've had about lighting out our way is always that it's too dark. So therefore I think you're going to get some pushback. People want to feel safe. There's been crime about. They want to feel that they can see when they drive, and as you get older your eyesight gets worse and driving at night gets harder. So I think it's a very good approach that you've taken in this report.
Right, well, I'll put that. All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so now we go to 5.3, and I don't think we've got Sophie here. We do? Where's Sophie? Oh, in the corner over there. Yeah. Yeah.
So kia ora koutou. I'd like to cast your minds back to November last year. There was actually a motion from this committee to look at the feasibility of automating the Cam River floodgates to be tide gates. And that was from the Kaiapoi River Rehabilitation Working Party motion to investigate, for this council to investigate that. But the motion was to seek whether there was support from Ngaitua Huriri and ECAN as asset owners before considering whether the feasibility study should be funded. So I approached the Ngaitua Huriri Runanga via Mahanuri Kurtaio and received a report, which is the appendix to this report, which does oppose the automation of the floodgates for reasons such as fish passage and effects on inanga spawning. So because of that, the staff recommendation is to not seek to fund the feasibility study. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Redmond?
Thanks, Sophie. What was ECAN's position?
So I actually was waiting for the Runanga report before. So ECAN have been supportive of us, our council investigating this. They haven't been opposed, but they also haven't said that they would fund anything. So I haven't actually asked them explicitly, do you support this feasibility study? I mean, I think that they would be happy to have a feasibility study, but whether they actually would go ahead with the automation of the floodgates and who would fund what, I haven't gone into that detail. Yeah.
Any more questions? Right, so is any Councillor Blackie move? We've got a seconder, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I'll be very, very brief. I was the one, I recall, who insisted on going to the Runanga first because I was 99% sure they wouldn't buy it, and it turned out I was right before we spent money either internally or externally. So you know, my gut feeling said that the whole scheme was never going to work anyway. So I don't mind that we're turning it down.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, and I endorse those comments. It was an idea that had been around for a long time, pushed by certain individuals in the Kaiapoi community, and because it never went away, it was it needed to actually be tested further, and it's got to the point where it has been looked at to a cursory degree, but the crunch is, does Runanga support it? And the answer is no. And the other question, of course, would be, even if we went ahead, who's going to fund it? And it certainly, I wouldn't be holding my breath about ECAM putting up any money for it. So, yes. So this decision is the correct one, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Bryan.
Thank you. I'll be voting in favour as well. However, we've got tide gates on the Taranaki stream. They're on the sticks, and with changing weather patterns, this will come back. Sea level rise, and you get that saline water pushing even further up, causing issues. The Taranaki stream that was put there because of flooding issues from the ponds when they actually flooded, so it prevented backwash into the settlement. So yeah, there are places for tide gates. However, I completely agree that spending 15 at this stage is money wasted.
Right, well, I'll put that. All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so now we've got 5.4 tram road improvements. Must be Joanne again then.
You've got me rather than Don today.
Yeah.
So I'll take this report largely as read. What I would just note is the tram road scheme design report pulls together a large program of works along the tram road corridor that would be rolled out or phased over quite a number of years. This would have funding that goes well beyond the LTP. It's been developed in phases so that we can stage implementation. The scheme report has been peer reviewed by Opus, and what we have done with this is prioritise intersections due to high risk. And we are looking, wherever possible, at in the first phase providing low cost interventions to get good safety improvements with items such as the REORs, which are the rural indicator active warning signs. So I'll just, as I said, take that as read and happy to answer any questions.
Looks like we've got no. We have Councillor Doody.
Just with the Earleys Road one, since you've had those early indicator warnings, it's been very successful, has it?
The signs that are on Earleys Road and
Yeah.
Johns and
Yeah.
Skits Road
Mhm.
are actually the stop ahead advanced warning signs. They're part of a trial, so they're different than the REORs, which set a speed limit as you approach.
Okay. Right, okay.
But they are very successful. Well, they have been
Yeah.
successful so far.
And I think these ones, it's anticipated they would get a good safety outcome. They have been rolled out on the road between Westmelton and Darfield, and yeah, I think they've been very successful there.
Councillor Blackie.
Yeah, I'm supportive of at least phase one anyway. But can you tell me, apart from those signs we've just mentioned just then, how does this tie in with the overall speed control of the whole of the tram road? Is that integrated with this or not, or is it a separate issue?
It's something we're going to be considering and bringing to council in the near future is how we manage speed on Tram Road. I think there's a section from where we're currently doing the speed limit review through to about just east of Island Road through to Mandeville, which would likely be relatively easy to bring down to 80. The section from Mandeville to Oxford Road, Depot Road, is probably a little bit more of a challenging conversation with our community. But development of a regional speed management plan is something that I'm anticipating will be required within the next 3 years. So that will be something we'll need to work towards, how we stage and deliver our speed management improvements through the district.
Councillor Barnett.
Joanne, at the intersections that you've got there, you've got obviously some land purchase and thing, but the biggest thing that seems to be the issue with some of those corners is hedges. Do we have any mechanisms now to actually try and require improved visibility at some of those important corners, particularly it's Two Chain Road, near Swananoa, that one there, where with the angle as well, where the hedges are actually obstructing visibility?
So with our growing out over the road reserve, we certainly can, and that is something we here need to look at. The challenges are where we have those triangle boundary corners that other than purchasing a corner snipe and then obviously clearing that, it's very challenging. We can't really enforce that within private property.
Yeah, Gordon.
Thank you. It's within the context of Tram Road, but we had the meeting with Joanne, you'll recall, with Mr. Harland, with the local councillors and some residents. Has there been any update from NZTA with the intersection? We were looking at intersection improvements, including speed reduction potential. Is there any update on that, and where Jim and NZTA got to in terms of seeing what they could do to fund some of that program?
Sorry, we did actually inquire about that around about a week ago, but we haven't had a definitive answer as to where they are with funding. I understand they're still working on that. They are working on the design, was my understanding, but the funding is something that they were still trying to secure. In terms of speed, as part of the consultation we've got out at the moment for the 80 km/h over the overbridge, that includes the on and off ramps from the motorway. We had NZTA agreement to consult on that whole lot at one time, so we're just working through that now. We'll have a report to council early December on that speed limit consultation.
And one question for myself, the designation program, the long term, some of this property we may have to purchase for this, will that be designated at the same time as what we're looking at now? If we have to purchase any of that land later on, will we be designated for roading this,
I understand the designation process happens through the district plan review, so that would be when I guess Donna's working through that process at the moment of visiting the property owners. We are proposing designations. In terms of timing for the actual purchase, I think that depends a little bit on each property owner and how quickly they want to settle that.
Yeah, what I was meaning, do we actually need to designate that land now so the owners know, even though we may not want to purchase for 20 years, for example?
So where we've got a specific design, the likes of Fernside, Flaxton Fernside and Fernside Road onto, say, Lehman's, where we've got a design for that intersection, we have designated land. I'm not aware of any on Tram Road that we need to specifically take, so not at this stage. I would have thought they're probably more just a small corner snipe or a slither rather than a larger area.
Okay. Right, does anybody want to move? No. We got a seconder? Second, yeah. Let me up.
I think it's a very good report, Joanne. Excuse me, and I think that the work that's being done certainly identifies a program with the increased traffic, traffic along Tram Road, and it is a high area now given the development that has occurred along there. It's timely that we are looking at this and prioritising it. But the question I asked around the intersection on the off-bridge, off-ramp there was cause for quite a bit of concern here recently, and we followed a meeting with Jim Harlan from NZTA, and I thought that was a very productive meeting where there was some matters considered. So I'd certainly like to just make sure we continue to keep an eye and the pressure on that, because there's going to be, with the Northern Corridor opening, there will be certainly, and the improvements that are being done there, it would be great, as we talked about, to see if they could be aligned as best as possible. The speed limit, doing the work that you're doing along there at the moment and reviewing that's important. So no, I support the report. Thanks for the work that's been done.
Councillor Blackie. Councillor Barnett.
Tram Road's really, really important to those of us who live out Cust Oxford Way, and I'm really, really pleased to see the improvements. It's getting a lot of wear, particularly from Mandeville on, and those roads are breaking up an awful lot. So really, really pleased that you're looking at the intersections. I've seen some terrible behaviour on some of those crossroads, near misses. It's quite scary when you're approaching them at speed. However, and this is always my however, once you get past Mandeville, it's basically rural. It's a rural connector road. It's really, really important, arterial road actually, connecting up our townships into Christchurch City, where a lot of people work. And being able to travel on that road as a proper highway is really, really important. So I get really nervous when people start talking about speed limits past that urbanised fringe of Tram Road. So anything past Mandeville would require quite a bit of consultation with our community. Just to put it in context, my husband leaves at 8 in the morning, he gets home at 6:30 at night, and that's with it being a 100k speed limit. While people may say it's only a very small difference to take it down to 80, it does add on to the commuter time, and that impacts on the development of our district. It also impacts on the ability of people to have lives out in our district. So while I totally accept and understand speed restrictions on some of those, the curvy bit, off bridge, as the Mayor said, I am quite opposed on straight rural roads that you can see for miles. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. If people are driving sensibly, then there is no danger to drive at that speed. In fact, it's hard to even keep to 100 on those beautiful straight stretches of roads. And all you have to look out is for rural hazards, which is normal all over the country in rural roads. So just wanted to put that in as a comment, that we would need to talk seriously with the community about speed limits before we made any changes past Mandeville, for sure, certainly.
Councillor Bryan.
I wouldn't like to put a finger on it, but I guess I've probably attended in excess of 10,000 crashes over the last 39 years. When I was based in Christchurch for 2 years running, I attended more crashes than any other officer based in Christchurch. The most common theme, the commonest excuse I got was I didn't see it, I didn't see her, I didn't see him. And the reason why they didn't see them is they weren't looking properly, or they didn't stop and look properly. While I sympathise, I am personally very much in favour of the 80k going up to Chain, because we've got a dirty great big school and a dirty great big play centre. We've put footpaths in there because we're trying to get kids to walk to school. So whilst I sympathise that somebody wants to get to work a minute and a half faster, extending the 80k through to Mandeville for a minute and a half, I don't have an issue with that.
Right to reply? Right, so I'll put that. All in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so now we've got report referred from the Woody End Community Board, project update requesting support with the shared path, and Joanne and Glenn. Shall we let Glenn start off, shall we?
He does a good job.
So this report is seeking approval to proceed with the detailed design for the extension of the Rangiora Woodend path. I'll take the report as read. We did have a workshop with the community board in mid-September, and following that we've done some extensive consultation which involved one-on-one public consultation with all the affected residents on the route, as well as the school and the bowling club. We received 34 submissions in total, with 26 of them in favour of option 2. The only thing we're asking is to allow the path to be installed, we need to install 33 metres worth of no parking lines opposite the Turuwhahia Road. That's just to allow a lane shift for a safer crossing point for the cyclists. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Barnett?
Delighted to see this. When is the rest of it going to happen to link people from the school through to the Rangiora, through to the Jill Kramer Trail on the NZTA part?
So we do have the wider path along Main North Road along the State Highway on the eastern side of the road. It's not signed as a shared path at the moment or marked as one, but we can have a look at that. Yeah, that's right, it was. It was widened out for that purpose. The other thing we are looking, and Glenn's been doing some fantastic work at how we can also connect through to the Gladstone Road path, the shared path there. So it's part of that bigger picture that we're looking at. How do we tie up those gaps and make sure we have a sensible path that people know where they're going? So it will be quite once we get Bob Robertson Drive finished, we're going to have a really lovely loop that people will be wanting to get out onto.
Any more questions? Have we got a mover? Have we got a seconder? So we've got Dan and Robbie.
Just to say, well done, Glenn. I popped out to one of your sessions on the one of the mornings. We had a very good turnout that morning, didn't we? But it was, I think you've done a very good job with the consultation with this, certainly talking to the affected parties along there, and I think you've achieved a good outcome with this, so I'm in support of it. Particularly like the picture on page 126, and I'd suggest colleagues, if you have a moment, have a look, see if you recognise anyone there in the picture. But, and the little man with it, but no, well done, Glenn. Job well done. Cheers.
Nothing here. No more speakers. Councillor Barnett.
I'm trying to think if it was 2008 or 2009 that we started the planning for what's now the Jill Kramer Trail, and the intention was to try and link so that we knew that eventually we would get a Woodend to Rangiora link, but also then to link Woodend to Woodend Beach, which is very, very important. All the kids from Woodend Beach go to Woodend School, and all the residents use the beach. And it was a dangerous road. It was a very twisty, turny road. So it took maybe 5-10 years to get that actually finished, with a lot of help from the roading department, and a special mention of Ken Stevenson, who was instrumental in helping us there, and the what's it called, PDU as well, were very, very helpful. So the community put a lot of time and work into that, and they did a great job. But it was always in the intention that there would be a link, and that NZTA would come to the party and allow us a lot to look after that footpath and get people across. Now with the lights going in, hopefully in January, across the road, that now makes it very attractive for cyclists to try and actually avoid that nasty Rangiora Woodend Road intersection, to do the little cut through School Road, and then to travel on that eastern side through to get out to the beach. I saw a cyclist waiting at Woodend Beach Road the other day. It must have taken him, we were there for 10 minutes and he was still waiting to try and get across that Highway 1. So I think that will be a really well used route if we can get that path to link in all the way, and I really applaud the work you've done to bring it up to School Road.
Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to congratulate Glenn on his achievement. I'm not always favourably disposed towards cycleways, but I thought this was one that was really going to be successful, and the consultation and listening, I think we've ended up with a good outcome. And I'm not sure if you're getting royalties for that photo, Glenn, but I'm happy to talk to you later. Thank you.
Right, a reply from you. Right, I'll put that. All in favour? Against? Carried. Now we've got...
Can I just give you a quick update on the traffic signals? Actually, NZTA have confirmed today they have awarded the tender to Fulton Hogan. Fulton Hogan have already been in and visited the school with Ken Terry, the policeman, and they've got a plan for how they're going to operate that during construction, so that's all go.
Cool. Really good. Right, so now we've got reports of information. We don't have to vote on that, do we? Just to receive the reports, 7.1 and 7.2. So we got a Robbie, the seconder. Councillor Ward hasn't done any seconding today. See, you'll second that. Cool. All in favour? Carried. Right, now we've got portfolio updates. Myself, won't talk about roading much because we've been doing a bit of that. Probably we had Gerard and Amir and myself and some staff talking to the new contractors, or the existing contractors who got the new roading contract. They've now got a couple of trucks on there doing our potholes around the town and areas, and we've sort of got an indication that they're looking at upping their game, and so it's all positive there, looking good. Down Flaxton Road's all on the cards. It's out for tender at the moment, so hopefully we'll come up with a satisfactory deal on that. So that's all for me on that. So drainage and stock water, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The NPS freshwater and the impact on drainage works, natural wetlands and the 100-metre buffer around that has come up from time at most of the rural drainage groups over the last couple of months. And once we get a very a clearer idea about how it all affects us, our drainage unit, and our maintenance program, I would suggest that there's a special meeting for the rural drainage groups and anyone else who wants to come along to explain it, so that everybody understands how our staff, drainage staff, are going to operate going forward to comply with this new MPS. The Water Race Advisory Group, which met in Oxford on October the 27th, there was a question about the legal opinion that this council has evidently undertaken to clarify Will's ability to, as a contractor for this council, to maintain the race system. Now, from what I understand, that this was already, the question was from Margaret Spencer-Bauer about why are we going for a legal opinion when in fact we've already got one. So I just wonder what, and I undertook to ask and get back to her particularly. So I'm documenting that question. And just on the water race supply, the way the reports are presented to the group, and also it cuts across with the rural drainage groups, there's questions about the type of information that is reported, which is this is an example, but maybe there could be a review about how this information is recorded and conveyed to these groups, because they question about could it be done in a more user-friendly way, why is the appreciation recorded the way it is, this sort of thing, and I think it does need a review about how we present the budget and the ongoing maintenance and cost centres for these groups. And I'll raise it here because I don't see that it comes under any other committee that I report to, which is and it's a cycleway issue. There is a level of dissatisfaction that has surfaced at the Wood End Sefton Community Board about the walking and cycling reference group that undertook the consultation and had a meeting and used that bang the table software as a method for consultation. What was conveyed was there's been absolute silence since people completed the consultation, and as a communication mechanism, it didn't seem to be fully embraced by some of the Wood End Sefton people who were representatives on the group, and I would echo their concerns to a degree. I don't know, I couldn't answer what's happened to that reference group, and so I just tabled that. Certainly it's been a month, 6 weeks or more since that consultation was completed through Bang the Table software, and there's been a silence. So an update on that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Would you like Joanne to respond a bit to that now?
I think that it could go out further to the reference.
Sorry, I'm certainly happy to get an update out to the reference group. Sorry, probably the delay in processing all of that information. There's a lot for Mark to work through. He's been pretty busy with the Paraki Street working group and tied up there. So it's been a little bit of balancing priorities and trying to keep that working group going as well. So he has started working through all the feedback. There is a lot of it, and he's just trying to process that and look at some of the questions and options that he needs to work through. I have booked in a briefing with Utilities and Roading for December to have a look at where we've got to with the network plan, and we'll also be involving green spaces in that discussion, but happy to put out an update to the reference group in the meantime.
Thank you, Joanne. Right, me again. Not much in the sewer line to report, but the water, as you probably realise, we've had a wee bit of a hiccup with Cust, with the boil notice water on, with some E. coli found. I understand the boil water notice has been rescinded today, but the chlorine will probably end up having to stay in the water system for a fair period until we know exactly what's what with the system, because this is their second one. But it probably indicates the need for the update, what we're actually got progressing at the moment, because the indication are we're not 100% certain, but the bacteria probably, or E. coli probably, come from the concrete tanks that need to be replaced with all the cracks in the concrete. So it's actually good to know that we're onto it before we realise what the biggest problem is. The water management plan sort of comes out in force on July the 1st, and we're Colin's looking into a predicament we've got there. To keep chlorine out of your water, the main supplies like Kaipa and Rangura, we don't know whether we actually have to introduce chlorine and then apply to get it taken out, or whether we can technically apply before the 1st of July. So that's up in the air at the moment. So Colin's doing a bit of homework on finding out whether we can apply earlier, but I don't know whether Jared can give us any information. Apart from that, it's...
Look, I'll very briefly cover it now, and although Colin is giving a briefing following this that'll get into more detail, but really the dilemma is the regulator doesn't get established until the 1st of July, and the regulations require that we chlorinate unless we have been given an exemption, and the regulator won't exist until the 1st of July to give an exemption. So where Colin has been trying to get some clarity and certainty there, and we're trying to formalise that because it's a significant issue for our district. We're working with Christchurch and Selwyn because they also will face the same dilemma. But yes, certainly Colin's going to cover that in a bit more detail in the briefing.
You did?
So I probably won't be here for the briefing, so questions I would like Colin to perhaps to consider is around possibility of UV, bringing that forward, and other options. Can that please be covered as part of those, rather than just, look, I certainly understand the reason for keeping chlorination in the interim, but particularly if there's a risk, but I would like to know a bit further around whether those other options have been explored and can be considered, please.
Do you want to come up to the table, Colin?
The draft legislation we've seen simply says all water shall have residual disinfection in it. It doesn't say anything about unless you've got UV, so doing UV quicker wouldn't get around the dilemma of the legislation saying that we have to do it. So it wouldn't really, by us, well, I don't think it would change anything really. It will give us a stronger case to apply for an exemption, but it wouldn't stop the problem of potentially having to turn it on and then apply for an exemption and then wait to see what the outcome of that would be.
Have we a plan when we have, when we've got further information to certainly have an information evening or some information for our community on this, because they'll, knowing that community and been involved in their water supply upgrades over the years, they'll have some fairly strong views, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely that's going to be the major thing about it, is informing the community. And I think the first step has to be make sure we've got 100% clarity on the message we give, and then talk to the community about it. So we need to get that first.
Right, thank you, Colin. Yes?
You said something about the boil water will be lifted today. Is that? Can you just clarify that, because I've got a lot of people asking about that.
So the boil water notice has been lifted today. Anyone who's on the text message service will have it. It'll be on our website, Colin. You can.
Yep. Yeah, so it's been out via the text, email, alert, and the council website. And I think, okay, Alistair was, I thought he had updated all the different channels, but we can follow up on the Facebook as well. Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Colin, what would be the sanction if we didn't chlorinate, on the 1st of July?
Well, as an extreme case, we could be prosecuted. That's part of the legislation now. So similar to the Health and Safety at Work Act, they have similar things there about prosecutions if you don't follow, if you're intentionally either negligent or not doing what the legislation and standards tell you have to do. So I don't know if they would start with that route on the first day they come into power, but that they could do that.
Thank you. So, right, there we've got Councillor Ryan on solid waste.
Well, not too much, not because there's not too much. You're all aware of the audits and everything, but we're all aware of it, so I won't take up your time.
Right, that was good. That's quicker than mine even. Transport.
Just further to your report, Mr. Chair, that had a very good meeting with SciCon, I thought, and they had the chair of SciCon as well as a board member there, the CEO and local manager, so it was good to have that direct contact, and they welcomed us potentially coming and meeting their staff at some stage, and yeah, I think it's fair to say that they really want to do this contract really well this term, so both Jared and Joanne were there as well, and I thought that was a really good meeting, so thank you for that initiative, Paul. I've continuing to have engagement with Jim Harland, keeping the pressure's the wrong word, but keeping connected with him around the priorities we have in Woodend, in particular the signalised crossing, and thank you, Joanne, for that update. It's just really important that we keep that project on track and the other projects that have been signalled in Woodend, because the community certainly expect that, them to be delivered, but also particularly the signalised crossing, but the other projects, it's been a long time, and from when they were first announced to still not being any further ahead. Jim advised me the other day that the funding case for the other safety improvements has gone to up the chain, so we'll wait with interest to see where that gets to. But I'm having a monthly meeting with Jim, because it's important that for me that I keep on top of those issues with respect to Woodend in particular. Jim, our CEO, and I popped to Christchurch City Council the other day at their invitation, and undertook a deputation with regards to the Innes Road to Berwick Street, which is to do with the Northern Corridor. There is, with the park and ride, it's to connect with the buses to go along that route. There is a view from some within the community board down there that the Innes Road to Berwick Street area wouldn't be included in that particular area, and if we're to make park and ride and express buses work, we do need them to go along that entire corridor, even if, and high occupancy vehicles as well, but at the very least, at those peak times, that's where we certainly want to see that occur. I think the city's got themselves into a bit of a bind with this particular issue. They were going to resolve it on Friday. It didn't get resolved on Friday. It lay on the table. Their staff haven't had adequate consultation with the strategic partners, which includes ourselves. I understand from Joanne there's certainly been a meeting today, was it today or this week anyway, where they are now reaching out to us, but it's a bit late in the process, and the recommendation from their council staff to certainly to the community board was to not include that as part of the consideration of that making that express bus work. It's fair to say, I think, from the elected level in there, they are certainly on board and want to see that happen. We will have to wait and see where they get to in terms of resolve. I had some members of the community board come up to me after we presented, thanking us for our submission. They weren't, and they certainly appreciated the fact that it may be just limited to buses. Ideally, it should be high occupancy vehicles as well, but small steps towards the bigger objective. So we'll wait to see where that gets to. But it's was appreciative of getting a heads up from their elected members in town, and that we were provided the opportunity to go in and make a submission. And it's Environment Canterbury, ourselves, NZTA and other parties made deputations last Thursday. So and they're all fairly strong in their message that we need to do this. So we will see where we get to.
Questions? Councillor Barnett?
Dan, just on the NLTP, we went to a briefing a while back, before the election anyway, saying that if we wanted to keep putting the foot on the bypass issue, that we needed to submit to the 2021-24 National Land Transport Programme. Irrespective of what the direction of it is, are we submitting as a council or only as a regional body, and what is the suggested direction?
Well, I'd prefer to probably get Joanne to probably answer this, but yes, we are, and we have, as I understand. Is that right, Joanne? And it does, well, and that was my point at the time too, because I didn't see it before it was submitted either, and I had asked to see that, and I expressed my disappointment that we didn't get to see that before it went, because I did want to make sure that that was properly resourced and the right information's gone out. Since since been assured that all our projects that we want to see are in there, in fact more than, well, it's a complete exercise. A complete exercise has been undertaken with respect to that, but I would have preferred that we have seen it and that our council had been briefed on that before it went.
Is it, when it comes out as the next draft, do we still submit on that draft at all, or I thought we did get another crack at it next year?
The NLTP projects go through a moderation process, so we've put in our draft projects, but it does go through a whole process of checking and moderating against other councils' projects, and to be honest, I think what we come out with is something less than what we ask for every time anyway. Yeah.
Question, Councillor Doody?
Just a question, Dan, please. When you were speaking with Jim Harland, did he mention anything about the tram road lights proposal?
No, and I had to go. We caught up after a Runanga meeting the other day, and I had to go to another meeting, so I just emailed him this afternoon, just while we're here, asking him for an update on that particular project.
Right, thank you. Right, so we've got no questions, understanding orders, no general business, so we'll call this meeting to a close at 5:02 p.m. Thank you. And now we've got the briefings.
Thank you. We've got a series of briefings. I do know that we've got apologies from 2 for 1:15. So how are other councillors placed in terms of timing, just to give us a bit of a gauge of how we should pace it? What time's your next one? 7:30, okay. Do you plan to eat between now and then? 6, yeah. Okay, I think 6 would probably be, we'll try and aim for 6, so there's about 5 points, so we'll go, yeah, okay, that's a good target for us. So Joanne, you're first.
Hang on, turn this off.
All right.